Support for WUWM podcasts comes from Johnson Financial Group, helping customers build financial plans around their unique goals for over 55 years. More at johnsonfinancialgroup.com. Johnson Bank and Johnson Wealth Inc. are Johnson Financial Group companies.
Today, we are going to switch things up here on Status Pending and bring you some good news. It's a conversation with the people behind one of my favorite coffee shops in all of Milwaukee, La Finca Coffee House. A little background is that La Finca opened up in 2017 and was started by two sisters, Janeth and Lizeth Zorrilla. They've lived in the U.S. since they were children, but their family is originally from Mexico, and they even sourced their coffee beans from their grandfather's farm in Oaxaca. So, grab a cafecito and pan dulce and listen to my colleague, Expert Nunez, talk with Janeth and Lizeth about their story as immigrant entrepreneurs.
For people who aren't familiar with La Finca, can you tell me a bit about your backstory and why did you both decide to open this coffee shop?
So the biggest and most important part of our story is that we were raised undocumented in the United States. I came over here when I was 3, turning 4, and she was 1. And I wanted to create something with my sister that not only highlighted our culture, but represented our family in a certain way so that we could get roots here, which felt kind of complicated at the time to establish roots in a country that didn't want us. And so in 2012, we were granted DACA, which was amazing. And in 2016, we decided to apply for advanced parole, which sounds really crazy and scary. And it was at a time that nobody was really doing it. It had just kind of rolled out. But advanced parole basically gave us a sheet of paper that said, yes, you can leave the United States for X amount of time, and we guarantee that you will be allowed back in. So when we traveled to Oaxaca, meeting my dad's side of the family, the 3 weeks were amazing. Emotional, I remember flying in with her, and we're holding hands, and I can't stop crying because it feels like home in a place that was so foreign to me. And we get to meet our grandparents, our great aunts, cousins, everybody in that short time frame. And in that trip, our grandfather puts coffee bags into our suitcases, and he's like, just try it, have your friends try it. And every evening it was, let's sit down, talk about our day over a cup of coffee, every evening. And it was always in a little tacita, traditional of Oaxaca. And we loved that storytelling. We loved being able to just decompress after a day. And we wanted that, connection that we felt here. So coming back, I started sharing that coffee. I myself didn't drink it. But I started learning how to make pour-over, started infusing different flavors to try to have something different while connecting us back to Mexico. And I think the forming of Finca, establishing our business plan, we really mapped out kind of the roles that our family would fit in because we knew we wanted to involve them. This was for them. So we're my dad can help us with the ordering process. My mom's, her recipes is everything we do. And even though we didn't do food right at the beginning, we knew we were going to incorporate it because everybody needs a little something to go with their coffee. But yeah, that was the beginning of it, and we learned a lot, but I think that business plan really helped us stay focused and grounded to continue our path to growing what we have 7 years later.
Absolutely. It really sounds almost like a dream come true in a way. I'm wondering, I know that all of these instances happen in your journey where you didn't know if you'd be able to go back to Mexico, see your family and stuff. But was it always in your plan to start a business together?
Yes and no. It's funny because this year I personally got to reflect more on our, entrepreneurial journey. I never wanted to do this professionally. We were both raised with really a strong focus in our education and getting a career that was really important to both our mother and our father. So excelling in school was a priority, and getting a career that was going to be a little bit safer, more stable was definitely something that was in our goals. Now I'm realizing that was my parents' goal, and there's plenty of avenues for success, and I definitely feel like we've reached what we think of success now. So entrepreneurship, I think we've discovered that was something that we kind of forced into. It was our only option because of our undocumented status when we were young. We weren't able to get the jobs that we wanted to. Even if I would have finished a career, I wouldn't have been able to get the licenses that I wanted to. I wasn't born here, so I don't get that benefit. And Lizeth realized, I think it was around 16 years old, she started working for a national organization called United We Dream that fights for immigrant rights. And they hired her as an independent contractor. So she formed an LLC at 16 years old, 18 years old, and realized that that was kind of our way around being able to get a job for ourselves. And I think learning that is kind of what opened our eyes to this kind of lifestyle. But I'm really happy with where we are now, and I'm happy to kind of be that example that success comes in so many different forms, because we're not taught that. You have to learn it as you get older, and it's a tough lesson to learn because you feel like you're failing when you're succeeding.
And I also want to mention for people who are interested in getting to know La Finca, where does the name La Finca come from?
So La Finca comes from when we were younger. We always knew that my grandfather owned a coffee farm in Oaxaca. The farm's been in the family for about 5 generations, so we heard stories of when my dad was younger being raised on there, working on the farm, and we've heard so many stories about it, but we never knew what the farm was called. We just called it La Finca. So when we started thinking and workshopping ideas for our space here, that one just kind of stuck out because it's what we always called Grandpa's Farm, and that's where we're sourcing all of our coffee from, is Grandpa's Farm. So it just felt natural to call it La Finca.
So I also want to mention the location of your coffee shop. It isn't something that maybe people easily stumble upon. So how did you guys decide on having the coffee shop here?
So I saw an ad for it the day that the previous coffee shop closed. And that same day I drove out here and I was like, I'm looking around and I'm like, I love the lake views. People can sit outside. And we already knew we were going to bring our mugs. So we were like, can you imagine people sitting here, enjoying a cafecito, and making this look more like what we miss? So when we made the business plan, it was revolving around this. And it was difficult. We wouldn't have had the same foot traffic had we gone to somewhere in the south side. We wouldn't have had our community, the community that we were raised around, that we grew up with, the south side Hispanics, And so that was a challenge. Can we bring our people here? And we sat down, we had the conversation. We're like, let's take that risk, let's try to see who's going to come out to this little part of town. And it is super small, So for me specifically, being able to see the amount of Black and brown people that come to this side of town, I think that was probably the most important factor for me to be able to be here, is to be able to draw a crowd that creates diversity in this neighborhood. Because Milwaukee is so segregated, and that needs to change.
Right. And how else do you tie in your roots from Mexico into what's on the menu too? It's really creative every month. I've noticed that.
Yeah, so our menu features change every month, but a lot of our staples include a lot of really popular Mexican traditional drinks. Like we make horchata in-house, and we incorporate that into our coffees, into our lattes. We've got a really popular drink called a Café Tres Leches as well, where we, again, make a Tres Leches cream in-house and incorporate that into our drinks. We try to highlight our favorite parts of Mexican cuisine in our menu by trying to incorporate it into a coffee drink. Even candies like the mazapan candy, that's in a latte here as well.
Oh my gosh.
So we take little bits and pieces that we enjoy ourselves and we think people will enjoy, and try to incorporate that into our coffee and our food as well. Like Lizeth mentioned earlier, my mom is involved in a lot of our kitchen. The special this month is a very popular street food from Oaxaca called tetelas, and they're like these little triangle-shaped pockets of masa. They're filled with rajas con crema, poblano pepper strips with a little bit of cream, and then they're fried and served with a pumpkin seed salsa that Liz makes and sour cream.
You mentioned the coffee itself comes from your grandfather's farm. What have been some of like the challenges of doing something so unique and interesting of directly importing the beans from his farm?
So I think the biggest challenge in the beginning was figuring out the direct source of it, right? We know we want to work with him. How do we get a rural area in Oaxaca to be able to send their packages to the city so that then they can send it over to us? So that in and itself was tricky. Once we got the help of family from down there, uncles, cousins that were like, yes, I'll package it. We'll bring it down to the city. Even to this day, we only send packages in groups of like 5 to 10. And the reason for that is security. In the beginning, I can't tell you how many packages we lost in transit. They would just disappear. We wouldn't be able to track them anywhere. And that was a huge loss for us because we were investing to be able to get this coffee specifically. Currently now we work with, alongside my grandfather, a woman-owned coffee farm in Oaxaca as well. And the stability has been much better. So for the last, I want to say at least 3 years, we haven't had any issues, which has been very reassuring. And that gives us more incentive to try to grow in that fashion. But that is something that we look forward to next year, to be able to continue the path of sourcing our coffee directly from farmers so that we can grow our taste profile in shop.
Before we wrap up our lovely conversation, I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. I think you both mentioned this. How have you seen your business create community over the past 7 years since you originally set out to do that?
Something very important that Lizeth touched on was promoting diversity in our community. It's evident when you walk in the shop how much diversity there is. And it's a point of pride for us to be able to say that it's because they're coming here. They're coming to La Finca to get some coffee and chat with friends. I think that's one of the biggest ways we've seen community grow throughout the 7 years that we've been here. But outside of that, there's been numerous partnerships that we've been able to make along the way and encourage just growth between not just other businesses, but entrepreneurs in the area. Some good friends of ours that actually own the 414 brand in Milwaukee. We partner with them a few times a year to put together something called a mercadito, where we host 15 or so, whatever fits in our little space, entrepreneurs that come and sell their goods here. So we're opening our doors to other businesses in the area to come and share their products, share their story, and collaborate so that they get to share that with our community here. So those are probably some of my favorite ways we've been able to see community grow here.
Yeah, I love that. It definitely seems like you guys have created like a safe space and a really creative space too. And so thank you guys for welcoming me here, and it was really great to chat with you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Janeth and Lizeth Zorrilla are sisters and co-owners of La Finca Coffee House. They spoke with WUWM's Excret Nunez in 2014. I'm Jimmy Gutierrez. Status Pending is a production of WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, part of the NPR network. Music in this episode is from Blue Dot Sessions. Subscribe to Status Pending for more stories about changes in immigration playing out in Wisconsin and beyond.